Hey, good evening, everybody. Hey, good evening, everybody. It is day 25 of Transforming Prayer. Transforming Prayer is the 31-day prayer walk for your LGBTQ loved one. And it's written by Vicki Joy Anderson, and we are doing it with Vicki Joy Anderson. So, yeah. So I hope everybody had a very blessed and peaceful Shabbat. And we are going to dive into day 25 of Transforming Prayer.
Hmm. All right. No parent left behind. Proverbs 13:24. Whoever spares the rod hates their children, but the one who loves their children is careful to discipline them. If you are a Christian parent and the LGBTQ loved one who you are praying for is your own child, you are likely enduring a heartbreakingly difficult season of spiritual warfare. Trying to marry the biblical definition of love with the incongruous worldly definition is simply not possible. Add to the mix socially engineered agendas such as the PC movement, tolerance, and the ever present threat of not preaching to others, and the task becomes even more difficult. Add to this human emotion, parental instincts, and an innate DNA wired propensity to protect your child from all harm and danger. And this journey, if you are not on your guard, may succeed in sifting you and your entire family like wheat. Yahweh forbid. I have personally witnessed situations where Christian parents or grandparents are so distraught over a child's coming out that the child is shunned. I have personally witnessed situations where, because the parent would not accept the child's new significant other, the parents were shunned by the child and their partner. I have personally witnessed situations where parents have maintained a loving relationship with their child without compromising what they believe. The relationship remains intact, but on the inside, the parent is shattered. I have personally witnessed Christian parents who, after a lifetime of believing that homosexuality is wrong, cave and accept their child's lifestyle to the point of reinterpreting scripture to accommodate the child's worldview. I, like you, have seen it all. But until we are standing in someone else's shoes, we truly do not know what would happen if that shoe was suddenly on our own foot. We must show one another grace. The church must get up to speed on how to comfort and counsel families adjusting to an LGBTQ family member. There are some churches that take the tough love approach, and they chastise parents if they don't take a hardline all or nothing approach. But nowhere in Scripture does Jesus command a parent to stop loving or taking care of their child if they are not professing believers.
On the flip side, there are churches that fall silent when parents cave into the born that way dogma. Pastors preach God is love and Jesus loves you sermons, but completely pithed of any truth or conviction, lest they come off as intolerant or judgmental. Nobody wants to be labeled that narrow-minded fool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even worse, tick off the tithers.
Ooh.
Yeah, because, it wouldn't be so bad when they walked out the door if they left their pocketbook behind. But usually when they leave, they take their wallet with them, right?
Amen.
Both churches have done the parent of an LGBTQ child a disservice. There needs to be a biblical balance of support and understanding when Christian families are catapulted into the LGBTQ world with little to no preparation or plan of action. The world will instantaneously be at their doorstep with advice, counsel, and support, and the church had better be too. Amen.
Yeah.
Parents new to this arena are often in triage mode, so busy putting out the immediate fire that they may not even realize that they are struggling with shock, shame, embarrassment, anger, denial, feelings that they have failed as parents, comparing themselves to other parents in the church, wondering if they are being punished by Yah, and the list goes on.
Mm-hmm.
There is so much invisible pain, and these parents need to be included in your prayers. It is an absolute crime that our churches have support groups and care ministries for nearly every imaginable people. Divorce care, grief share, celebrate recovery, meals on wheels, special needs children, but nothing for people struggling with LGBTQ related issues. Nothing that specifically, okay, because you can't just toss it in there because it's not. It can't be just tossed in there. It needs to be addressed specifically. And why is this? If you're reading this book, it must mean you have a loved one that you are praying for. Perhaps your heart is broken. Perhaps you feel isolated. Perhaps you feel shame or hopelessness, or even a desire to have someone to simply cry with you on those really hard days. If this burden is heavy upon your heart, maybe you are the one who is supposed to start that LGBTQ care ministry at your church. If your church succumbs to fear of man and denies you, then start one in your home and have the hurting hearts come to you. Doesn't matter what you do. Just don't do nothing. I see a few things here, and one of which is, yes, there are all kinds of groups for all kinds of things. There are even some ministries and groups out there that do focus on sexual brokenness, right?
Mm-hmm.
They focus mainly on pornography.
Mm-hmm.
But they toss homosexuality in there because it's a sin.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not normal sin. And we've talked about this many times. And before I get into that, I wanted to look at the other thing that kind of that stood out to me, and so I probably just lost that. But let me just say this: it's not normal sin. Murderers know it's wrong to murder. Thieves know it's wrong to steal. Liars know it's wrong to lie. They always try to cover it up, right? Homosexuality is not so. I mean, how many parades have you ever seen marching down the street so that somebody can be a good murderer? How many people do you know bring their children to the parade of adulterers? It's not normal sin. Because while all this is going on, they're teaching your children and your grandchildren that having two mommies or two daddies is the same as having one mother and one father. And that's a lie from the pit of hell. I know a lot of children that were raised by homosexuals, and I know a lot of abuse that went on. And yeah, there are some out there that weren't sexually abused, but their bodies weren't molested, but their minds were. Their minds were raped, tortured. I mean, what kind of depravity do you think it puts upon a child to see all the things that go on in a homosexual household? And you know what? Someone right now is saying or thinking, well, there's same things go on in heterosexual households. that aren't saved. Well, they're all heterosexual households. Just because you got two designed heterosexual women that are both grasping onto the sin of homosexuality doesn't mean that it's not a heterosexual household, right?
Mhm.
And
And
I'm not
and
addressing heterosexual households. I'm talking about
mm,
homosexuality.
mm. Well, and just common sense, David. If we think abuse in a homosexual home is wrong and evil, and you say, well, it's wrong and evil in the heterosexuals are doing
Yeah,
it too, the conclusion we draw from that is not that because the heterosexuals do it, it's then okay for us too. The conclusion you draw from it is both are evil,
that's right.
not both are excused.
Yeah. See, it's really them confirming exactly what you're speaking to them. And that's where a lot of the anger comes from, because it's not just that. There's a lot of different scenarios and situations that you can find yourself in when trying to minister or reach out to a homosexual, and you think everything is going well, and then boom, it just explodes. That's conviction. Okay. And so Vicky and I were talking about having some homosexuals come on the show, doing a show with some homosexuals, especially the homosexuals that truly, sincerely believe that they are Christian,
Mm,
and having a discussion. So keep that lifted up in prayer, if you would.
yeah.
Um, so we're going to jump into the heart preparation. So, number one and number two, I'm going to read number one and number two. Number one, are you the parent of an LGBTQ child, teen, or adult? And number two is, are there other parents of LGBTQ children in your church or neighborhood, in your circle that you know of? Or even that maybe, your neighbor said, hey, you know what? A friend of mine lives lives a couple blocks down. She's going through the same thing, you know. So I think first, and really we've said this all along. We say it all the time. If you're going to get involved, you have to get informed.
Mm,
So maybe you need to find out who the other parents are, because they're all going to deal with it differently, right?
mm,
And there is no one way. There is no. Well, here, you know what? If you send me a couple $100, you know what? No. I'll just do it for $99. I'm gonna send you the list, the go-to list on how to deal with this issue. Really? Yeah. I might as well be offering you a bottle of anointed oil and a splinter from the cross of Jesus, right? Because there is no one-way method. It just doesn't work like that. And so it would be amazing for parents to come together just to deal with this issue. And not just parents, but loved ones,
mm,
those who agree and disagree. Imagine that. Imagine being able to sit in a room with people who don't quite agree with what you believe
mhm.
and actually just discuss things with them. Mm.
Yeah.
Hey, that would be something.
Hmm.
Number three is, do you feel the church understands your situation? Have they attempted to reach out to you? Has their help been helpful? And in what ways? Number four is, and in what ways has your church helped or hindered your journey?
Hmm.
I hear from a whole lot of parents, a whole lot. And I have some that have walked away from the church because they were in a congregation where people were saying, no, you have to just, it's no, there's no other, it's just no. You have to cast the demons out of them and bring them here, and we'll put them up on the altar, and we'll all be around them. We'll get them demons out of them. You know, there's a lot of parents out there that are so confused, and they don't know whether to scratch their watch or wind their backside.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a scary place to be. I think of two families that I met when I was in Ohio, and the one family, the boy cried in dad's arms and in mommy's arms, but mostly dad's arms, because him and dad were really close. They had an intimate relationship. Turns out that the boy was molested in his younger years. Pretty much a common factor in a lot of those cases, but not always. Like I said, sometimes they don't molest the body, they molest the mind. And that's why nowadays they don't have to molest them and recruit them, because they're doing it in school, so they're raping their minds. But this boy used to cry on his dad's shoulder almost daily. Said, Dad, I don't want to be like this. I just am. It's getting real hard to be on the football team, Dad. You're not gonna be in the locker with all the guys, and I can't control my, you know, what happens when I look at some of the guys, and I don't want them to start to figure it out, or I think I'm just gonna quit football. His dad said, "Hey, you don't want to play football? Don't play football."
Mm-hmm.
He says, "If you want me to write you a note and get you out of the gym for the rest of the year, I'll do it."
Mm-hmm.
The kid said, "Dad, this is just who I am. I don't want to be this way. I'd rather die, but I am. I can't change it." And his dad continues to say, "No, it's not who you are." And he prays with his son, and he prays that this too shall pass prayer. This man loves his boy.
Mm-hmm.
They have an intimate relationship. Good family. And one day it was all yeah, really. He left work early for no apparent reason. He pulled up. He always parked in the garage. He didn't park in the garage. He parked in his driveway, got out of his car directly into his house, and went right to his son's room. And then he had to cut his son down. He had to cut the rope that was around his son's neck, and his son passed out. He would have died. The doctors and the counselors told the family, he's homosexual, accept it. I said, no, he's not homosexual. He's confused. And we do accept it. We accept him. And they took him home. And that was part of the turning point, where they actually found out that he was molested, and then they found out some other things, and little by little they got him some Christian counseling, and sadly I don't know, um, they come and they go, and I've lost contact with that family. Sometime last year I did receive a phone call just to let me know what was going on, but there was another family I got kind of close to. They had a little girl, Little girl, same thing, crying, crying, crying. Nobody wants to listen to her that this is who she is, this is what she is. So she don't know how to release this pressure, release this pain, and so she starts cutting herself. You know where she got the idea to cut herself? She read a book by a Christian but secular singer, Demi Lovato,
Mm.
right? Who claims to love God, but that's where she got the idea. Demi talks in her book, in her own testimony, about cutting and how it released the pain and the pressure. And so she starts cutting herself. One day, she's tired of cutting herself, and she goes way deep. She ends up in the hospital. Doctors telling mom and dad, hey, look, she's homosexual. Matter of fact, she's transgender. You have to accept this. Child Protective Services will get involved. Welfare is going to get involved if you don't. This family pulled away from their church because they didn't get any help. No one wanted to address it. Nobody wanted to talk about it. Now, in the other church, for the other family, oh, we can beat it out of them if we got to, but we got to get that demon out of them. Those loving parents don't want their child around them people, because they're the other extreme, and then the other family has the other extreme where they don't want to talk about it, and a few of them actually say, we can't help who people love. We just have to get used to it. These parents don't even want to go to church anymore. They don't even want to have fellowship. They just want to be done with the body. The same body that they're supposed to be so connected to, that knows not only what they're going through, but feels their pain, but feels their hurt. The same body is supposed to come around them and envelop them and say, we are here. We're here for you. That's where we're supposed to be at. So when your church is supposed to be coming and understand your situation, make sure they really understand. Because I'm going to tell you from somebody who was on, who has now, hallelujah, been on both sides of that spectrum. The ones that I saw in my life were hell and brimstone. God hates faggots. They're all going to burn in hell. Or the other extreme. Oh, don't worry about it, baby. God don't make no junk. And he created you that way. Neither one of them ever sat well with me. Not even the one that was meant to pacify me and appease me. You know, there's two things that always stuck with me that really stood out after I got saved. As a transgender and an LGBTQ advocate, I never, ever agreed with homosexual marriage or homosexuals raising children. Ever. because I knew it was morally wrong. I'm done.
So, to add an additional facet to that as well, to anyone out there who is a parent, um, we all have to have grace. The church has not been taught. We have not been educated. We do not know how to handle the situation.
Amen.
And most of us are terrified that we are going to stick our foot in our mouth if we try to attempt to say anything as if we can relate to it when we haven't been through it. And so, one of the ways that we are going to learn how to minister to families going through this is that when we talk to families that are going through it and we say things in ignorance, that becomes a teaching moment for us. If we have stuck our foot in our mouth, rather than you walking away and bearing a grudge and putting up a wall and letting the enemy create bitterness, that's a learning opportunity for the person
Amen.
that stuck their foot in their mouth. And I've been at this about a year and a half, and I've gotten a little bit better, but I still, every time I get on this show, every time I talk to David, every time there's a check in my spirit, I'm going to stick my foot in my mouth. There's always that fear because I haven't been through it. I don't know. I'm making assumptions. I'm safely sitting on the sidelines observing all of this. And so we have to have grace, because where a lot of my counseling experience is with families that have children who are special needs. And within the last 7 years, actually 12 years since my mom got cancer, a lot of counseling, people who have cancer, family members who have cancer, grieving. And there's something about people who are broken, traumatized, or in grief. We are very hypersensitive and our emotions are very raw. And so we have to give people grace. They're not in the same intense headspace we are in when
Yes.
we are in that. And I'll give you a little example. I'll try not to belabor the point, but many, many, many years ago, I was doing a disability ministry at a Sunday school, and the people that ran the ministry had a child with special needs. And the mother kind of, the glass was always half empty sort of thing. And I felt more comfortable talking to her because um, I was, to a degree, raised in the special needs community, in that I was in the hospital nearly every day of my life for the first 15, 16 years of my life. And so I had some of the similar experiences of the surgeries and the recovery period and the health issues and the doctor visits and the being teased and the not having friends. And like, I understood that whole piece of it. And one day this woman was venting to me about a particular pastor at the church and what a hypocrite he is, because the last time her child had gone in for surgery, he never even mentioned it, and he didn't come to visit, and he didn't care, and she vented it. And I hate this kind of conflict. My heart was just wrenching inside. Like, I just want everybody to get along, you know? And so after Sunday school, we walked out into the hall, and it was filling up with people, and the exact pastor that she had just been complaining about came running up to her child and said, "I heard you're having surgery this weekend. He had a gift for her and a card." And then he said to the mom, when is her surgery this weekend? I want to come and visit and whatever. He basically undid every single thing that she had just been heard over. So in my mind, I'm thinking, this is awesome. God is so good. This guy just undid every single thing that hurt her. It balanced it out. She's going to understand now. I mean, I was like ready to high five her when the guy left the room. He left the room and she turned around. Can you believe that? He doesn't need it. We'll see if he shows up. And I thought, whoa.
Wow.
And, you know, even though I was young at the time, I think I was probably in my late 20s. I don't know. I said, you know what? You can't have it both ways. I said, you can't create a scenario where no matter what someone says, they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. And I said, you
Yes.
can't be upset with him when he doesn't give her a gift and want to see her in the hospital, and then be upset when he does. And she actually received it. she had a moment of, she had an aha moment. But we do that. We do that when we're in grief. We do it when we're in a situation people don't understand and people come and just nonchalantly like, well, have you tried this? Did you do that? And sometimes it's like, oh man, we just speak so cavalierly about people's brokenness. And I have a friend, a dear friend, who experienced very close, deep grief about 5 or 6 years after I did. And I shared with her when she was lamenting this same issue. I said, I went to church 3 weeks after my mom died, and I was just in trauma, right? And a woman had asked me, how are you doing? And I said, I'm terrible. And she goes, why? And I'm like, my mom just died. And she's like, oh, you're still upset about that? I'm like, it's been 3 weeks. And so this woman
Wow.
this woman who was a sage in the church, she was in her 80s and had been a Christian her whole life. She patted me on the shoulder, somewhat Scandinavianly, and
Wow.
she said, keep on trucking. And I thought, this is what the sages in the church, this is what women who have followed Jesus Christ and walked the path of sorrow and brokenness for 50, 60, 70 years. This is a woman who buried her own husband of 50 years about 2 or 3 months before my mom died. And all she had to say to me was, keep on trucking. Where'd you get that? A mud flap on a semi? Like, I couldn't believe it. And in my pain, in the midst of my grief, 3 weeks into my sorrow, imagine the ire and the emotion that stirred up in me. Imagine, but it's 7 years away now. And I just think, you know what? If you haven't been through something, it is just inevitable that you are going to stick your foot in your mouth. You're going to be caught off guard. Those awkward moments, someone's breaking down in tears in front of you and you're like looking for the exit. You don't know what to say. And in those situations too, we have to have grace. And if there's a way to do it in a non-shaming way, turn that into a teaching moment for that person so that the next time someone like you comes up to them, they've got something better to say.
Amen. And amen.
Hmm.
Number 5. Did we do number 5?
I don't. No, we have not.
No. Was your reaction to cast? Okay, so in what ways has your church helped or hindered your journey? And was your reaction to cast away or to cave? Or do you find yourself vacillating between the two depending on the day?
You know, this is kind of this ties into your fight or flight response. Who are you when you face stress or fear? Are you a fight or a flight? And I think typically the way I'm wired, the way I am, when I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm drowning, this is like way too big. I don't know how to handle this. I tend to be the like, see ya, and I like want to run away, let someone else take care of this. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You know, because I'm not I'm never going to cave when it comes to the biblical worldview. I'm never, ever, it's not in my blood to say, well, yeah, maybe the scripture does talk about gender nonconformity. What verse was that? I'm never going to do that. And because I don't know always in a situation how to say something, if a person's ready to hear something, what approach to take, my temptation between those two is always, get me out of here.
Yeah. I don't, I mean, not, I don't, I can't even say I don't think. I couldn't cave. I wouldn't cave.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't either.
you know, and that's the thing, like, the family I referenced earlier, especially the father, um, he just wouldn't cave. Even though he was being ripped apart. His heart was being just ripped apart. Oh man, was he going through it? That man's, I can tell you that man spent so much time on my floor just sobbing.
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't want to have a breakdown in front of his son. And through all that, he walked away from his congregation, you know, all kinds of things that he walked away from that he changed, but he never, ever caved. And we cannot cave.
Mhm.
You cannot cave.
Mhm.
You just can't.
Not an option.
No, it's not an option. And whew, all right.
Mhm.
Might get a little trouble, get into a little bit of trouble here, but when you give in to anything, you're caving. You start calling John Jill, you've caved.
Mhm.
You have given them exactly what they want, and you've lost all the power that you had.
Mhm. Mhm.
When you allow Mary to bring her girlfriend home and they can hold hands in your home over Thanksgiving dinner, and one of the little ones running around the house catches them sneaking a kiss and wants to know why was Aunt Mary kissing that woman, you've caved.
Mhm.
I'm not telling you don't let them come in your house, because I say let them come.
Mhm.
I say let them come, but you let them know this is my home. You won't do this in my home.
Mhm.
Well, we're traveling, a long way. Can we stay in the guest room?
Mhm.
Absolutely not. I'll help you pay for a hotel room if I can. Hey, I know. If the hotel's not the option, how about you stay up in the guest room and your friend can stay down in the basement in the guest room down there. Right? That's not caving. Because if your son came home with his girlfriend and they weren't married, would you let your son and his girlfriend sleep together in the guest room? See, I've known a family. I got to sit down with a young man that was deceived and thought he was homosexual, and he said, "My parents let my sister and her boyfriend, who she's not married to, sleep in one guest room at family gatherings, but they won't let me and my lover sleep in the same room. We have to sleep separate."
Mhm.
Why? It's not like the house is a godly house if you're letting your unmarried son sleep with with his girlfriend, or your daughter sleep with her boyfriend, right? And they're not married, so why not? But if you do have a godly home and you do have some values and some morals, doesn't mean that you have to shut them out.
Mhm.
What means is that you start laying down the law. What means is you start giving them the rules of your home. Oh well, mom, we didn't have that rule 5 years ago. Well, that's okay, because this isn't 5 years ago. This is now. And I'm telling you now, no, you can't
Mhm.
do that in this home. And once you start calling John, Jennifer, you've lost your power. You've lost that battle. You've caved. When you start carrying around a picture of your daughter that looks like a man, you've caved. When you start sharing pictures of your grandson that looks like your granddaughter, you've caved.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, and this isn't done to love them, because all you're doing in that case is loving them to death. Literally, you're loving them straight to hell. There's so many things you can do that a whole lot of people wouldn't be focused on what they can't do so much if they really sat back and looked at every situation and said, oh, I can still do this. I just have to actually step up to the plate and be the parent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, go on other days where you can try to be your kid's best friend, because you can't be your kid's best friend. Your kid can't be your friend. You have to be the parent. They have to be the child. It's for the same reason that men, your wife can't be your best friend. She has to be your wife. Ladies, your husband is not your best friend. He's your husband. God created that order for a purpose. We can't take away from that by wanting him to be our best friend. It doesn't work like that.
Mm-hmm.
It can't be. And I don't know how I got all the way over where I'm at right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I did.
You know, this is an analogy my dad used to always use. It's so poignant. If you have a front yard full of dandelions, you can run them all over with the lawnmower and problem solved for a week. They'll all grow back because you've scattered the seed all over and you haven't pulled it out at the root. And so when we cave, well, okay, just for the time being, I'll call him Jill. Those dandelions are going to grow back 100 times thicker. You haven't pulled it out at the
Amen.
root. And I've said this before on the show, so I'll keep it brief. The issue here is so much deeper. The dandelion head is your child has come out and wants to be called a different name. The root of it is courage versus cowardice in our own heart. And when I look at the kind of things in scripture that our brothers and sisters in Christ had to go through in their day and age and living in the midst of Babylon, getting thrown into fiery furnaces and lions' dens, etc., etc., they didn't just live in the midst of Babylon day after day after day, caving into all of the social pressure and the pop culture, norms of the day. Okay, well, I'm going to go to Baal's temple, and okay, I'm going to give them the little Christmas sacrifice. And okay, if they had been practicing every single day the things of the culture that would have made them fit in, when that moment, that crisis of faith, that moment had come, okay, now bow to this statue. Okay, now stop praying in front of your window. They wouldn't have done it
Yeah.
because they had practiced cowardice every single day. And the reason why they were able to withstand the fiery furnace and the lion's den is because every single day they were countercultural and they practiced courage. And the opposite of love is not hate, it's fear. There's no fear
That's
in love.
right.
Perfect love casts out fear. The one who fears, blah, blah,
Yes.
blah. So if you are responding to someone, whether it's your own child or a coworker or a friend, because I'm afraid they'll think I'm an idiot. I'm afraid they'll leave the house. I'm afraid they'll leave the home and become a prostitute and get on cocaine. I'm afraid they'll commit suicide. I'm afraid they'll go transgender and have these surgeries. That is not love. And if you are always reacting out of fear, that's the dandelion head. Here's the root of the matter. Most of us see what time it is. Most of us believe that the end is near. Probably, maybe happen in our lifetime, definitely our kids' lifetime. Most of us look at the signs of the time and we think it's close. And we've talked about it for years. They're going to round us up at the door and throw us into FEMA camps, and they're going to put us in guillotines, and they're going to put guns to our head and say, deny Christ. And we talk about this so nonchalantly. We've talked about it, since the 70s, like all these Revelation movies that come out and stuff. But how in the world are we going to stand up to the barrel of a gun in our mouth if we can't even tell Jill her name's Jill?
Yeah.
We've got to practice courage every day so that when we need it in the end, we have it there for us.
Amen. It's just, I've been I'm very firm on some things. And like, I look at like Jay. And so for anyone who doesn't know who Jay is a young man I met at an LGBT pride parade. I established a relationship with him, poured into him everything that Yahweh would have me to pour into him. A very intimate relationship, and and now he's out of the LGBT movement. He is back home. He's with his family. But Jay was acting out as a homosexual since he was 12 years old or so. He was molested, but he was acting out as a homosexual for since he was 12 years old. But when he turned 18, his Christian mother and Christian father, well, stepfather actually, but father nonetheless, said, okay, you're 18 now. You have to go because you can't be this under this roof. And he was like, what are you talking about? But in the years that he was gone, right, he was about 4 hours away. He was allowed to go home for holidays, for family gatherings, for special events, things of that nature. And a few times he actually took a friend with him, with permission, home. And it was that very situation. Well, Jay, you have to sleep in the room with your cousin, and your friend can sleep downstairs in the guest room, stuff like that. It's that kind of situation. Another family reached out, hey, look, our daughter, she's a lesbian, she's doing this, she's doing that. And I'm like, well, how old is she? Oh, she's 19 or 20. And she's doing all this under your roof? Well, yeah. Tell her to get out. Well, I don't know. That seems kind of harsh. Okay, well then don't ask me what I think or what I feel. Right? Because I'm not going to change my mind because you think something is harsh. Another family right before I moved from Ohio, Christian family, like 5 or 6, 7 kids, something like that. Wow. 2 of the boys are homosexual. One is doing drag. He's at the clubs. He's partying. He's carrying on. The parents reach out. Would you meet us? Have coffee with us? Absolutely. What are we supposed to do? What are we supposed to do? How old is he? He's 22. He's 22. He's breaking your curfew rules. He's bringing his drag paraphernalia under your roof in your home with your other little kids running around. If he's at the club and he's hitting the club and he's doing drag and he's having sex, chances are he's having unprotected sex. Chances are he's having a lot of it. And if he's at the club every night of the week. He's probably drinking and possibly drugging it too. Um, what do you think you're supposed to do? Yeah, well, what if we put him out and then he ends up on the street and then he ends up hurt and then he ends up dead? Um, if he's going to end up that way, he's going to end up that way quicker under your roof with you making it a little easier for him.
Mhm.
That's the thing a lot of people don't understand. A lot of people don't understand that you're trying to keep your loved one from some dramatic, um, hurtful danger, right? That you created in your head. But padding their way and enabling them is only going to bring that quicker for them. And I remember I had a lady say, "Well, I can't put him out, David. What if he would turn? What if he turned out like you?" And I was like, "Well, gee, thanks. I think turning out like me isn't all that bad, right?" Of course, I know that she meant
Right.
he ended up a 14-year-old out in the streets, prostituting, giving his body away, HIV, on drugs, this and that. Yeah, well, sometimes that's what it takes.
Mhm.
And if that's what he ended up, then that would be by his choice. You know, I just say we have to be firm. We have to stand firm because there's only one truth. Facts don't make up truth. Truth is truth. Facts are facts. Okay, and truth isn't based on your thoughts and feelings. Trust me. And that's the sad part is when I go into um, public scenarios or even into the public high school and you ask them what is truth, they say, "Well, which truth?" I say, what do you mean?" "Well, there's objective and then there's subjective." No, there's only one truth. You want to know who he is?
Mhm.
And so we have to stand firm. There's only one truth, man. And if you're not willing to say, "Look, baby, I love you,
Mhm.
but you're an adult now," at least I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt, right? 18 at least, right?
Mhm.
I was giving her an ultimatum at 14
Mhm.
by a mother who wasn't a Christian and just didn't want to see this darkness envelop her child. That was
Mhm.
it. So, guess what? Hey, baby, you're 18 years old. It's time for you to, if this is what you want to do, if you want to live in opposition, not to me,
Right.
okay? If you want to live in opposition to Yah, if you want to live in opposition to the Almighty God, to the Creator, to the Heavenly Father, if you want to live in opposition to Him, I'm sorry to say that I want to be there for you, but you can't do it under this roof.
So, David, not to absolutely not to put you on the spot here, but I'm just thinking too, a brand new caveat we're starting to see amongst the transgender community is we're seeing lots of teenagers kind of entering into transgenderism who are autistic, Asperger's, etc. These are not kids who
Oh yeah.
could live on their own at 18. What sort of counsel would you give parents who don't have the option of ousting the teens because of a special need?
No, yeah. And I'm talking about somebody who,
I know.
if they have enough sense to know that they can uh, still be under your insurance, right?
Right, right.
And drive to the club every night
Yep, exactly.
and work, then yeah, but no. And you're right, there are a whole lot of them that, especially nowadays, and the
It's new.
Asperger's
Yeah. Yep.
is like, I look, last year at least 4 out of every 10, maybe 5 out of every 10 parents that reached out to me about their boy had Asperger's.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a
Mm-hmm.
whole lot of difference. And so what would
Yep.
be my, you know, I believe that it's a demon.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I do. I don't believe in chemical imbalances. I don't believe in that. I just don't, because I had the ultimate chemical imbalance, and I was on my deathbed, right? and it took one touch from Yah. And so, yeah, I think that they're demons and they need to be casted out, but that we don't recognize. So if we don't recognize, we can't exercise our authority because we don't recognize it, right? And so I think that they're demons, and almost everybody that came to me, because Asperger's too, once they focus on something, they're focused on it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's ways to break that focus. And I was blessed, how to meet a woman who knew all about those kinds of demons and things like that. And I was always like, you need to talk to this woman, and because she knew all about Asperger's and the psyche and all that kind of stuff. And so I try to make sure that I have people that I can go to, because I don't have all the answers, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And so when a parent comes to me and says, "Well, what should I do in this situation? This is what you should do." Okay, now here's the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you shouldn't do that.
Yeah. The
I don't
the
have any problem saying, "Hey, maybe I was wrong. You shouldn't have done that."
right. The landscape is rapidly changing. I mean, even just that one gal that you interviewed at Take on the World this summer, who's like, hey man, I'm sorry to like break the system here, but I was never abused,
Yes, yes,
and
Jesse
yeah,
5.
Jesse, yep,
Love my sister.
and and
I can't wait to see her.
yeah, and so we are seeing things now with Asperger's and with social culture and pressure, and then what was it I was reading about yesterday? Rapid onset gender dysphoria, where a kid comes and out of the blue, and I'm using their terminology, not mine. Out of the blue, a kid will come home and say, "I'm transgender," and the parents like, "What? Nothing has ever been mentioned." And so we've got all these new caveats that are being introduced. It's escalating. It's not the classic old formula of sexually abused turns homosexual. 1 + 1
Yeah,
= 2.
no,
We're
it's
done.
not. And I say that all the time. I'm like, look, back in my day, you were recruited, you were molested into it.
Mm,
Now they're recruiting in all different ways, because
yeah.
now it's through indoctrination. Um, like Doug said, it's the poisons in the air and water,
Mm-hmm.
um, that make them more susceptible to these demons.
Mm-hmm.
And that do damage their bodies, making them weaker. And like I always say, beware of STDs, sexually transmitted demons. We have
Mm,
become a sexual nation that feels like it's okay to engage in any kind of sexual or over the line,
mm-hmm.
you know, um, activity. And I'm trying to get back up here. I want to address our brother, JJ. I don't know. Were you on the prayer call Thursday night, JJ? No. Okay. Um, Look, JJ needs prayer, and his daughter is very smart. Prays all the time. Recently, has come out as a lesbian, and even says
Mm.
that she's looked at the Bible, and he's having a hard time finding where it says women aren't to lay with women. One, I mean, really, you could go to Romans 1:26.
Mm-hmm.
Romans 1:26 is the first verse that comes to my mind. Um, but what I started the other day with the homosexuality and the Bible, you can't really see it because of my green screen, but with the homosexuality and the Bible book, this is a book that homosexuals have put out. Okay, this Walter Wink guy is a homosexual, um, affirming, confirming, celebrating thorn in the side of Christianity is what he is. Um, I'm sure he's a thorn in y'all's side. But what I started Thursday was to go over this book and show all of the scriptures that they use out of context and how simple it is to combat it. Um, so I'm gonna pick that up Monday. JJ, message me and I'll send you one of these. I don't have a lot of them. I don't print these. I actually just bought some so that I would have them. And I do have a couple extra, and I would love to send you one, brother, so that you can actually see what they are reading
Mm.
and what they're being taught and what they're being told. Because Vicky knows this. When we were in Iowa and we did the premiere for my documentary. Oh, um, wow, Jennifer, I just read your comment. I'm gonna finish this thought and then I'm gonna address. Wow,
Mm.
I love this. I love fellowshipping with my family, man.
Mm.
I love it because everybody's so transparent.
Mm.
So when we were in Iowa, there was a group outside, an LGBT group that said, "Hey, you know what? This is hate speech." And so I went out there and I was like, "Well, hey, let me help you protest me, right? Because you can't call it hateful if you haven't seen it. Come in and see it, and then you can call it hateful." I said, I told him, I said, as a matter of fact, you will call it hateful because it's pretty hateful. And I'm just being straight up. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said things in that documentary that I wouldn't really say that way now, but I wasn't really speaking to you when I wrote that when I did that documentary. I was speaking to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking to the world, really. I was speaking to everyone within the sound of my voice that they could receive something from me exposing the darkness, which is what I'm called to do. I said, but yeah, it's not really for the lost. The
Mm-mm.
documentary is not made for the lost, trust me.
No.
Okay. And once they see that door up, door slammed, wall up. But what we saw while we were there is there were people talking about us on Facebook. And I was searching out the different hashtags because they were all part of the same group. And we found this conversation. And I'm actually just trying to look real quick in my notes and see if I actually have it. Um, it was fascinating. Okay. It was fascinating. And I say that it was fascinating because we saw this conversation where this one person shared the event that was going on and said, I can't believe that a church in our own community would support this kind of hate. And it was a young woman, I believe. One of her friends said, well, what's so hateful about somebody not being a prostitute and a drug addict anymore and and having a better life And so she said, well, he said that homosexuality was wrong. He compared it to pedophilia, and he says, well, I don't know if he really said that because he didn't say it quite like that. They didn't say it like that in the ad. That's your version of what they said. Well, this and this and that, and he says, yeah, but and the one thing that stood out that he said was, I think that he says, I don't know, transgender to transformed. He said, sounds like we need to add another letter to the LGBTQ, right? And then the girl says, well, my friends at PFLAG, parents and friends of lesbians and gays, my friends at PFLAG can articulate that argument, their argument better than I can. So she wasn't even trying to argue her argument. She was trying to argue somebody else's argument, because none of the stuff, JJ, none of the stuff that your daughter is going to say to you about what she's reading in the Bible is she coming to on her own conclusions. It's all things that are being articulated and fed to those who are trying to argue it, because their thoughts and feelings are so deceptive, and they're so trapped, and they're so they're just so enveloped. But also remember that they're so sincere. And it's a hard place to be at when you're dealing with somebody who is sincere. Okay. Jen, I think that's Jennifer. Found out 2018 my stepdaughter was sexually abused by her mother. And last year she came out as bi at her school and became the cool kid. Of course she did. Lily is only 15. Lord have mercy. I think that's Jen. Because yeah. So, this isn't something that's just like you can just have I wish JJ, I wish I could send you a pamphlet like this that told you how to combat this perfectly in order to reach your daughter, but I can't. What I can do is send you this so that you can see what kind of garbage she is going to be learning and hearing and reading, and you'll be prepared to combat it, because just always know that you have got to love her to life and not love her to death. Don't compromise, don't give in, stand firm, don't cave. You can't. It's not an option. If you cave on anything, her blood will be upon your hands. And that's for any parent. That's for any loved one.
And JJ, you have so much extra power, for lack of a better word,
Amen.
being the father figure, because just because this world doesn't recognize authority doesn't mean God doesn't. And he has structured the family. And as her father, your prayers have an added weight. You are her umbrella of protection. And you can pray and intercede on her behalf. And you can speak to these things attacking her, and you can claim power in Jesus' name. And I've struggled my whole life with nightmares, like extra up here level sleep paralysis type stuff. My dad will come in my room at night and he prays against these things. He's my father. There's extra power in that because he is my God-given authority figure. He is my protection. He's my umbrella. And so seize that and recognize that there is so much power in intercession. You want to throw some fasting in, but claim your authority as the head of the house and as the father figure.
Yes.
The demons have to flee from that. They're legalistic beings. They cannot wiggle their way in if you are claiming authority over your household.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it any better.
Hmm.
Amen. I'm trying to figure out a way to send this over to my other, because I found the conversation. And
Oh, good.
It's so, yeah, it is. It's just so.
I have a favorite part of that chain that I'm hoping you can find, because I won't spoil it, but
Okay, it's in documents. Okay, let me just send it over. Hold on 1 second. This is just really good. Well, of course it's in documents. There's like 300,000 things in here. But I thought I had it labeled in a folder. I'm such a mess.
So, David, I'll wrap up question number 6 while you're looking, so you
Okay.
feel free to do your thing.
Thank you.
Yep. Question 6. What is the number one thing you have learned from your journey that you wish you could share with parents who have not yet gone through this, but someday will? What do you wish you had known beforehand? So, obviously, I'm not the parent, but I think in the last year and a half, since actually meeting and speaking with people who have either, it's funny, 2018, I met someone who came out of transgenderism, David, and I met someone who was entering into it, the first baby step into it. And I think the thing that shocked me the most is how, whether the family is a Christian family or not a Christian family, it was amazing to me the ripple effect of one person's decision and how it affects siblings, parents, grandparents, nieces, cousins. It ripple effects through the whole family tree. And I think if I had the opportunity, if I had any sort of influence over the younger generation right now, if I was a youth group leader or a counselor, I don't know if this would be effective, because I know that when we don't have that fully formed frontal lobe yet, long-term consequences of our decisions don't really mean much. Like, we live in the moment when we're young, but to just be able to plead with these kids that this decision is not just going to dramatically alter the path that your life takes, but it's going to have a ripple effect that is going to affect every single member of your extended family and the way they interact with one another. It's gonna potentially influence or hurt the relationship between your mom and her mom, mom and grandma, dad and grandpa. It's going to affect the get-togethers, the holidays. And I had the opportunity last year at a book table at a conference. And at this particular conference, I had just mother after mother, Christian mother, whose daughters very unexpectedly in college came out lesbian or trans. And these women were weeping, they were broken, they were confused, they were devastated, they were hopeless. And my heart just broke for them, because we have this myopic view of when someone comes out trans, how do we deal with them and how do we deal with their brokenness? And we don't understand that they have put a pebble in the river here that has rippled out to their whole family and their network of people, and that whole family tree is shaking. It everything that we do affects the body and affects our family. You know, doesn't matter what I do behind closed doors. Doesn't matter what I'm doing in my own bedroom, but there's no such thing. We don't live in a vacuum like that. We don't live in a world where the things that we do in the privacy of our own home behind closed doors does not affect a multitude of people. So, David, do you want me to go through and give you a little bit more time and just read through the prayer?
Yeah, I was just gonna actually. I already got it. It's
Oh, you
right.
got it? Okay,
Yeah, but
cool.
I want you to go ahead and do that. Let's
Okay.
do the prayer section, and then we could just look at this conversation because this is all of these kids that are confused and
Mm,
these young adults who are confused. This is their mindset. So
mm-hmm.
yeah, let's do that. Let's go into the prayer.
All right. Pray for unity among spouses and families. Pray that they would all stand as one voice, loving and accepting the LGBTQ family member without betraying biblical beliefs. Pray for churches to offer care groups for people and families affected by LGBTQ issues. Pray for Yahweh to tell you if and how you should be directly involved. Pray that pastors would have the boldness to preach and teach the full counsel of Yah, and that they would see options other than preaching fire and brimstone sermons or not preaching on the topic at all. Pray that Christian parents would not cave and abandon biblical truth when their child comes out. Pray that LGBTQ children would have the discernment to recognize their parents' acceptance of them, which is not the same thing as acceptance of their lifestyle. Isaiah 43, 5 through 6. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bring your children from the east and gather you from the west. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not hold them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth.
Mm, wow. And you know, one thing that there is no in this situation there is no repeat after me prayer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because we know there is no repeat after me kind of prayer.
Right.
Um, but what there is even through this 31-day prayer walk, and there's a method that I always call it a method because I don't want to say there's this repeat after me prayer because it's a method of prayer
Mm-hmm.
um, that was given to me a while back, and I want to pray that, and it's actually in the book. It's in Vicky's book. Um, it says David's prayer, but it's not David's prayer. It's definitely it was definitely from Yahweh, um, from His Spirit. When a woman said to me, the same woman who said that her daughter was, in college, but going to the club and living the way she was living, and I told her, you know what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
She actually did it and started. Her and her husband they started praying this prayer and fasting and praying, and this is exactly what happened. It's the same way it happened in my own life, but nobody was praying the prayer for me. But it's the same method of of occurrences. Um, the chain of events had happened for me. It's exactly um, this, and so I'd like us right now to I just want to pray that over liberty, and and so Father, yeah, we come to you. We come to you with our knees bent, our heads bowed. Father, we just come to you humbly. We come to you with heavy hearts. And for so many, but right now, Lord, we're coming to you for liberty. We're coming to you that you would just that you would touch JJ and you would touch Liberty, you would touch all of those around them. Touch JJ and empower him. Allow your spirit to empower him, that he will say the right words. And Lord, wherever Liberty is learning from, and or anything like that, that you would just destroy those avenues.
Yeah.
That you would burn those bridges, crush them. Lord, I come to you, and what I'm begging you is that you would place somebody in Liberty's life strategically, like only you can do. And let it be somebody that Liberty will see as a peer, that she'll see as an equal. And that she'll not only hear, but she'll listen to. And now, Father, I'm praying for that individual that you're going to place in Liberty's path. I'm praying for the other woman that you're going to place in Liberty's life so strategically. I pray that you would anoint her, to only, just anoint her, only to pour life into Liberty, only to be the word, the deed, and the example, and the action of you that pours life into Liberty. Yeah, I beg that Liberty would receive. And that through this young woman's life, and through this young woman that you're placing in Liberty's life, that she will be introduced to Yeshua. That she will hear and not just listen. That she'll envision and not just see. And that she'll receive it and not just get it. Father, I ask this in the name, the name above all names, the precious name in which your word tells us to pray and to ask and to intercede. In the name of your Son, Yeshua, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So let's look at this conversation that I find so encouraging. Okay, so the group that sponsored or put the whole premiere together, right, was the Iowa huddle, right? So the group that was coming out there to protest called themselves the Rainbow Huddle, an alternative celebration in response to the Fire and Brimstone, that's the name of the documentary, event the same night. All right, so we don't have to go through all this. That's me when I actually went over there. I look like I'm pregnant. That's me when I went over there. Man, oh man. Oh, what happened to me? Hallelujah. Thank you that I no longer look pregnant when I look at myself sideways in the mirror. But that's me when I went over there to speak to them. And this woman right here, let's see if I can do that. This woman right here was the pastor of the local homosexual congregation. And I'll tell you what she said to me. That was pretty amazing. She said, because I said to her, I said, well, inclusivity, that means that you would include all, even me, who doesn't agree with what you believe. And she said, David, the doors of our congregation are open to you. She says, our congregation is open to your ministry. She shortly retired after, and the pastor that replaced her said, absolutely not, you can't come here. So I didn't get to go. But this is me just talking to them, just going down there and saying, listen, I don't hate you. I don't hate any of you. I love you. And because I love you, I'm standing here and I'm not back up there in that church talking and fellowship with all the people who I know agree with me. I'm down here. I'm with you. There's our brother Zach right there. He's actually a police officer in Iowa. So I love when I go out in public with him because I know I ain't allowed to be strapped. But guess what? My 6'4" or 6'6" brother, he's strapped. So he was there with me, but he was just there to videotape. He wasn't there as a bodyguard. Although, you know. So this was just pictures of the event. That was my brother right there, my brother Lee. He's passed away, and right after we made the film. So Tyler Van Wielden, this guy says, I'm appalled by the Oskaloosa Nazarene Church. Way to point out members of the local community so you can tell them that they are hated. That was just him assuming, or just actually not even assuming, just making that up, because no one said that they were hated, not in the paper especially. Anyone that perpetuates hate speech is no good. I'm very disappointed. And so then P Flag Oskaloosa said it's very disappointing to see a church in our community hosting this documentary. This is the ad that the newspaper put. Fire and Brimstone documentary premiere from transgender to transformed. The Iowa Huddle. After 32 years of homosexuality and transgenderism, this documentary about David Arthur presents a powerful testimony of deliverance from sexual perversion, prostitution, drug addiction, gambling, alcohol, and more. Okay? Pastor's Q&A and a light meal with David at 5:30. Please RSVP, redemption, freedom. That's it. And that's all the ad said, right? That's it. Shameful and heartbreaking for a church dear to me. Well, one of his friends, Lori, we'd go down here and see what she says. She says, well, what's shameful and heartbreaking about someone who has been set free from sexual perversion, prostitution, drug addiction, etc., not wagging a finger, just asking? Oh, did you
Sorry, my phone
out?
rang. No, my phone rang and killed me.
Oh, okay. Well, you're back now. All right,
Yep.
I'm still reading anyway. Where am I at? There I am. So then somebody else says, are there people protesting? No protests necessary, but there is a support event instead that P Flag Oskaloosa is putting on. Okay, so this, I like this guy, this Razzie guy. Razzie Ragusi. Razzie Ragusi. I like it. I want to go to Iowa and meet this dude. He's like, how is showing a documentary about a man who found his true self in Christ homophobic or transphobic? Isn't the LGBTQ movement all about being true to who you really are on the inside? Transgender to transform sounds like we just need to add another T to the acronym. Hallelujah.
Mm-hmm.
So so Tyler says to his friend, I understand the thought behind what you're saying. Honestly, if you don't see the problem with the words written on that paper, I don't know what to tell you. Accusatory statements like this never help people. Just real quick. After 32 years of homosexuality and transgenderism, this documentary about David Arthur presents a powerful testimony of deliverance Deliverance from what? From sexual perversion, prostitution, drug addiction, gambling, alcohol, and more. Hello? I ain't see any accusatory anything in there, right? Did you? I didn't think so. So then, so Razi Ragusi says, part of being inclusive means including perspectives you don't agree with. P Flag Oskaloosa hating on a group of people because they have opposing views isn't very inclusive, and it's pretty hypocritical. Wow. So then Melanie Mackey chimes in. The bio on the website for this documentary blatantly compares homosexuality and transgender people to pedophiles and drug addicts and pushes the narrative of an LGBTQ agenda that recruits children into a life of sin. That's a whole lot of hate. No, that's a whole lot of truth, Mel. P Flag's event is a way to celebrate inclusivity to remind everyone that Oskaloosa can indeed be a welcoming place for all. So here's my guy again,
all of the cookie cutters.
Yeah. So because you don't like it, Mel, that means it's hate. From their perspective, they are showing love and compassion to a hurting and lost people. How does love and compassion equal hate? So Melanie says, hey, look, Razzie, equating LGBTQ to criminals and pedophiles is hate. There's a difference in disagreeing with someone and disagreeing with their existence and basic rights to be here. Hey, Razzie, what do you got to say about that? Well, let's find out. He says, Melanie, isn't pedophilia just a sexual orientation? What about ophidophilia? Sexually attracted to animals? You are marginalizing these people because you don't agree with their lifestyle. I would assume you think that their sexual desires are wrong. But if they are born that way, who are you to judge? Seems like you're doing the same things those Christians are doing, just with a different marginalized group of people.
That was the one. That was the one I liked. That
I was.
Yeah, that was the one. The seems like you're doing the same thing part.
That's exactly, and that's where the argument and the conviction is all at, right? And so Melanie says, look, I think you're detracting from David Arthur's actual message. Using one's personal journey, see, she says a whole lot right there. Using one's personal journey to push a larger and more dangerous narrative is what P Flag is protesting. I just attended a conversation between both parties, and it was fascinating and hopeful. So Melanie was there, right? She's there. So there's a 4-hour difference from when Razzie says, look, seems like you're doing the same thing those Christians are doing, just with a different marginalized group of people. And then 4 hours later, we see it's 4 hours right here, 4 hours from he was, I think, 8 out. Yeah. So we see there's a 4 hour later where after the event, she's like, now this is another contradictive and confusing statement if you really think about it, because she's like, I think you're detracting from David Arthur's actual message. But then what does she say? Oh, I just attended a conversation between P Flag and David Arthur, and it was fascinating and hopeful. Razzie says, hey, Mel, I'm not detracting. I just think you guys have a hypocritical worldview, and you have no objective ability to justify your reasoning. You can't even answer my last comment because it's just your opinion against someone else's. But guess what, Razzie? Mel's getting ready to tell you that it's really not her opinion. She says, look, Razzie, my friends at P Flag Oskaloosa are a lot better at articulating their perspectives than I am. Hello? My friends at P Flag are much better at telling you what they tried to tell me than I am, because they're used to telling it. I would love to see you at the next meeting and discuss it. They did so wonderfully speaking to Mr. Arthur about conflicting ideas and gave so much beautiful insight. And then, of course, somebody chimes in, that's very Nazarene of them, whatever that means. It's kind of Dumb. But anyway,
Which another thing, just to add a little bit of perspective, the Nazarene church had nothing to do with it. They weren't hosting it. They weren't there. That was literally just the sanctuary large enough, and we rented it.
yeah, yeah,
So again, they just didn't really understand what the event was. But I do think it's interesting, though, that Mel sort of has a blind spot there. She says that you should not use your personal beliefs as a platform for a larger
yeah.
agenda. But then when she's pushed, she says, well, my friends at P Flag, you know,
They're better at telling you how they feel than I am.
they have a personal experience that they can share with you better. So
Yeah,
we're
because I've been trying to share their personal experience and not my own.
right.
I mean,
Right.
like, really.
Oh, there's so much in the way of communication in general on this earth, and you get something like this where there's so much passion and so much at stake, and there's a spiritual war in the middle of it, and we're sinful, and I mean, it
Oh
really
my
couldn't
gosh.
be more of a
Telling
tangled
you,
mess.
when we go back to Iowa, I am looking Razzie Ragusia. I am looking them up. I'm going to take them out to dinner.
Razi Raguzzi.
And we're going to go have dinner in Oskaloosa. And we're going to invite P Flag. I'm serious, man.
Why don't we just
Just
rent out
surprising conversation.
we'll just rent out the kitchen in that Nazarene church.
There you go. The best thing about that is we didn't really rent it.
Oh,
They gave it to us.
wow. Can't get a better price than that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
There was like a one fee, and it was for the guy who was going to be doing the audio.
Oh, sure.
Working up in the booth, because it's like it was a theater. It's a $14
Right.
million building, right? And I think before we started, he said he didn't want to be paid either.
Wow.
So yeah, it was
Wow.
pretty amazing. Everyone gave as much as they could to make that happen.
Yeah.
And it was a nice turnout. You were there. It was a good turnout, really good.
Yeah, it was great. And no one in the paper or on those P Flag, communications brought this out. But when Tom Dunn went out to address the crowd, and
Yeah,
he explained to them, like, no, we just like got this space rented, and I'm a filmmaker and we're playing my movie and people can come and watch the movie. And there was a little bit of a, oh wow, we really misunderstood what this event was, but it was a little too far into it to back out at that point.
oh
but
yeah.
but
Well, even when I got there, they were still, of the idea that I'm all about hate, and
mm,
and I understand. I do. I understand where where they were coming from. A lot of them was
sure.
they were looking at, okay, they were going on my social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so because they were going on the social media, they were seeing another ministry that I was kind of
Sure.
attached to at the time, and they were seeing them, and they were like, oh man, if he's a part of that, then he's
Mm-hmm.
got to be like this.
Well, and
So I understood
until we have actual inclusive conversations that are actually inclusive,
that.
where
Yeah,
both parties are present, we will continue to just catapult off of presumption. We think we know what they believe and are saying. They think they know what we believe and are saying, because there all of these talks that they are having about inclusivity is not including the very people that they are defining, and we have to get at the same table.
yeah. I remember I had quite a few conversations with that that woman who eventually retired from
Mm-hmm.
that congregation, but we had quite a few conversations, and we never got excited or hyper, or we just talked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I said to her, I said, well, there's one thing that we definitely agree on. She said, what's that? I said, conversion therapy. And she says, really? I said, yeah, really. I was like, she's like, you're not for it? I'm like, no, I'm for the ban on it. And she's like, really? And she was like really shocked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I kind of just, hey JJ, real quick, just make sure you send me a message, email me um, your address so I can send you one of them booklets. And yeah, David Arthur at ibelongamen.com. Um, and so when I told her that I was against conversion therapy, and she says to me, so would you actually stand with us at the courthouse? And I was like, on that issue, yeah, absolutely. I said, just imagine how powerful and how impactful it would be a statement when it's very obvious that we have completely differing views, right?
Mm,
But we can come together on this one thing because this is the truth. That's why I try to tell people all the time, the left is not always wrong and the right is not always right. And
right.
that's
Of
why I'm glad
course.
I'm not left or right. I'm not Democrat. I'm not Republican. I'm a child of Yah. And
Hmm.
because of that, because we are children of Yah, we should be liberal on some issues and conservative on others. And
Mm,
that should be the way it is.
yep.
Um,
So, David, going back to the Fire and Brimstone movie for a minute, I was watching one of Tom Dunn's shows the other day, and he was holding up all of his films, and he held up the Fire and Brimstone, and he said, "This one's been censored." What does he mean by that? Does that just mean he can't advertise it on his site, or what does it mean? What did he mean by that? It's been censored.
um, I don't know exactly. I'm actually on his site right now, and no, it's on the site.
Okay.
I
I wonder what he meant by that.
what I'm thinking, okay, there's a big misconception, and I don't know. Maybe he tried to put it on what's the online thingy?
Like Netflix or Hulu or something?
Well, not one of them. They would,
Okay.
that would definitely not happen. But
Roku or
like one of the ones that you do yourself when you upload your own stuff and people can buy the digital version.
oh, is it Vimeo?
Yeah, Vimeo. There you go.
Okay, okay.
So he didn't want to put it on Vimeo because Rob Pugh, Wisconsin Christian News,
Hmm.
put one of my videos on his. Well, put a couple of my videos on his Vimeo, and then Vimeo told him he had to take certain ones down. Now, most of the ones that he had to take down were that other ministry, right? That I was
Oh,
attached to, that I'm no longer attached to.
hmm.
And so that was the initial. That's where it all came from. From that.
Okay.
Some of my videos just kind of fell into um, like casualties of war. They just kind of fell in there, and because, but they gave ample warning, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it went on for like 3 months actually. And so then Rob Pugh's the Wisconsin Christian News, their whole Vimeo was just completely deleted by Vimeo
Whoa.
because they didn't comply. Um,
Mm.
and so really that's what it comes down to, complying or not complying, right? And by not complying, we see what happens. And so it's difficult, right, to
Mm.
make certain decisions. So Tom didn't want to put it on his Vimeo because he didn't want Vimeo to shut him down.
Okay.
But like I told him, I even told John Pounders from Now You See TV, we were talking about that same situation with this documentary.
Hmm.
And we were talking about it, and I was like, they give warning. I know if I had a Vimeo account and I put it up on mine and Vimeo warned me. Now, see, the deal with that is though, and I understand because Tom doesn't want people to buy it. He doesn't want them to pay for the digital and then
Hmm.
it be cut off, and then they don't have access to it anymore.
Mm.
And
Mm.
then he has to refund a whole bunch of people. So
Sure.
I understand that. So maybe that's what he was talking about. I
Okay.
don't know anything else about it being censored. Um, maybe he shipped it to somebody like overseas. Like it wouldn't
Mhm.
surprise me, like the UK, and then it was like censored from there. I don't know.
Okay.
I wish I did know because I mean, shoot, it might be good you know, for advertising.
Mm-hmm.
Gonna say
Yeah.
my documentary got censored in the UK, yo. But I can't say that because Tom didn't tell me yet. And I talked to him too just about a week or two ago, but he didn't tell me anything. So I don't know. Maybe he was referring to the fact that it can't be placed on certain things. Uh,
Okay. It was recent. It was just within the last couple days. It was one of his recent
okay, okay.
things.
I'll I, I'll even ask him. But like you know, I know there's somebody else getting ready to try to put it on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah, and they have a pretty diverse and you know, so we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, if my book is on Amazon, I don't see why my documentary couldn't be. So
Sure. You're right.
yeah, yeah. Hey, look, guys, it's going on 2 hours. I got to do a youth Sunday school, a youth group in the morning via Skype. They're in a whole nother state than I am, but praise y'all for technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm able to go into that room with them and really talk to them. So praise y'all. Um, what else? Anything you got?
I don't think so. Are we gonna? Well, we probably will do an altered time tomorrow too, since you've got that Sunday school thing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's not, and it's not probably not going to be. Definitely, it won't be like my average, 2 or 3 hour chat.
Mm-hmm.
It'll probably be much shorter than that because it's a youth group, and they're going to be like, "It is time for lunch." I got things to do. Got to get my hair did and my nails did, and yeah, that's the youth, right?
Hmm.
So thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Oh, one more thing, David. I know we're not
Yes.
quite to the end of the 31 days yet, but I was on my Amazon site yesterday checking out stats and running some reports, end of the year stuff for taxes and whatnot. And in the last few weeks since we've been doing this, there's been some book sales, specifically Transforming Prayer, which I'm sure is coming from you guys who are diligently watching. So thank you so much. Authors do not make a lot of money, and you would be shocked how exciting getting royalties just on one book is. So to get half a dozen or so ordered, thank you so much. There's a million books out there and a million things you want to spend your money on, and that made me feel very loved. Thank you so much.
Amen. Amen. And I
Mm,
appreciate that too, everybody, because
mm,
that's just real.
mhm.
I know. Every now and then I get an email because I don't really sell my books on Amazon anymore because people actually go through the website because they'd rather I get all of it, and not just like $3 of it. So
Mm.
when I get an email that says, "Hey, you just got $7 and some change because you sold a couple books," and I'm like, "Woohoo!"
I know you'd be shocked how exciting 5, 10, 15 bucks are.
I
I
know
tell
it.
you,
Trust me.
genuine joy.
Yeah.
Mm.
So hey, tomorrow, day 26, transforming prayer. Probably be in the morning. Probably be best. Is the morning best for you?
Sure, that works for me.
Yeah. So it'll probably be morning. Uh, like maybe 10 or 11 ish. I think I gotta be on with them at 9. So yeah, it'll be after 10 anyway.
Okay.
So just look for the notification and come find us. All right. Thank you guys so much. Love you all
Mm-hmm.
truly,
Mm-hmm.
purely. Um, and I look forward to Seeing y'all tomorrow.
Mhm.
Peace.
Mhm.